It is time to check to see what's making headlines across Africa today. Zimbabwe faces its worst food shortage in 4 years following a drought and poor harvest. The UN World Food Program is working with government officials there to come up with plans to alleviate the anticipated suffering of more than 2 million people. In Mali, the former Prime Minister of Mali, Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta, has been sworn in as Mali's new president. His election is intended to restore normalcy to the nation following French-led military action earlier this year against Islamist rebels in the north who were aligned with al-Qaeda. Kenyan lawmakers have been called into special session to debate a proposal that could make them the first country ever to cancel membership in the International Criminal Court. Kenya's president and vice president are both accused of orchestrating violence that left 1,200 people dead following elections 5 years ago. And former Siamese twin girls from northwest Nigeria sat patiently in their parents' laps as doctors explained the complicated 18-hour surgery that successfully separated them last month. The procedure took place in New Delhi, where doctors declared the girls happy, healthy, and independent. And that is the Arise News Across Africa report. We continue it actually with the Rise News contributor Frankie Edozien. He's here with more of our Across Africa report. Frankie, great to see you. Always come with great news.
Good afternoon. How are you, Debbie?
Good. I'm doing really good. Let's go back to what we just mentioned in our Across Africa report.
Sure.
And that is the new president of Mali. Gosh, Mali has been in turmoil and crisis for quite some time.
It's been really, really troubling for them since March of 2012. Now, this new president, he's actually known there. He used to be the former prime minister. His name is Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta, and they call him IBK. And he has a really, really tough task ahead of him. First, he has to deal with the Tuareg separatists. And they only agreed to be part of this election unless they could have a say in having the separatism discussion they want to have, because the Tuaregs are the light-skinned Malians, and they are in the minority. In Mali, most people are really, really dark, and they feel like they want to have a separate country. So his first task is really in unifying the country, and that's what he says. He's going to unify the country, make Mali one, but also deal with corruption and graft, and, you know, the French troops are leaving, and Mali is looking bright.
It is looking bright, but gosh, he has a tough road to hoe. I mean, there's a lot of healing there to do, and particularly with corruption.
Corruption is one of the things that the younger army officers complained about, and that was what led to the coup, which then led to al-Qaeda fighters coming in and led to France sending troops. And right now, there are still 12,000 actually, United Nations peacekeepers still in Mali. So it's really, really a tough thing. He's got a lot on his plate right now, but for the most part, people are saying, you know, Mali is now on the upswing. You know, a lot of the fighting is over. There are people who are Tuaregs who still want a separate country, but they're at least willing to sit down and have a dialogue. This was not the case a year ago.
All right, let's move south on the continent to Nigeria.
Yes.
Aliko, is it Dangote?
Aliko Dangote.
Okay, yeah, signed a deal for an oil refinery.
Yes, so this is a situation where you have in Nigeria, private sector stepping up where the government has failed to act. You know, Nigeria produces crude oil, but then it imports refined petroleum. Aliko Dangote has now come up with $6 billion from banks and $3 billion from his own Dangote Industries to build a refinery that's going to create thousands of jobs and stop Nigerians from having to import oil that they use for petroleum, for gas. He also wants to build a fertilizer plant and petrochemicals. So this is really going to change the landscape of an already gigantic economy, but where the government has failed. The government has two refineries that don't really produce the capacity. They're falling apart. So Dangote has said, you know what? I'm a billionaire. I'm a businessman. Private industry can do this.
Now, this is kind of out of left field, but is there any timeline of when this refinery will go online?
Actually, he did tell the BBC that he wants to have the refinery working by 2016. So that's not a very long time.
That's not long at all. Okay, let's move to Liberia. There's been problems with freedom of the press there.
Yes. So there's a Front Page Africa is one of the leading Liberian newspapers, and its publisher, Rodney Sie, has been in prison since August 21st. This is troubling because he was found guilty of libel and sentenced, not really sentenced, but charged with up $1.5 million to pay a fine. And this would cripple his entire industry. It's already crippled his newspaper. They're not publishing anymore. They're only publishing online. And since he could not come up with that money because of stories that talked about the Information Ministry's corruption, he has now been put in jail. This is a problem for President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf because she has recently signed the Table Mountain Accord, which says that freedom of the press in Africa and insult laws are going to be removed. Unfortunately, she has taken no action. He languishes in jails. Reporters Without Borders, Community to Protect Journalists, everyone is saying, President Johnson Sirleaf, when are you going to release this man?
Yeah, and freedom of the press is so critical to a stable democratic government. So something has to be done there. And then finally, a little fun story.
Sports?
Sports, indeed. We reported yesterday, in fact, that Senegal had started table tennis again as a national sport after a 10-year absence. But why is something like this so important to a country?
It is because for individual sports or small team sports like table tennis or actual tennis, players cannot get very far unless they participate in international competitions. And you cannot participate in international competitions if you don't have the facilities to go or the funds to go. So table tennis, which is really popular across of West Africa because it's so easy. You get a table, you get 2 balls, you get your ping pong bats, and you can practice for hours. But you can't keep doing that if you can't travel to Lagos or South Africa or London or Paris to be in the tournament. So the government now deciding to say, okay, fine, we're going to put some money behind this is really the best news that's come out of the sporting generations over there. If you look right now in New York, there is the United States Open going on. Sub-Saharan Africa has perhaps only South Africa represented in there because a lot of these governments don't really sponsor their individual sports players. So this could signal a sea change in the way we see sports. A lot of team sports are sponsored. Soccer and hockey is sponsored, but for smaller sports and individual sports, it's a bit tough. So Senegal's taken the lead, and so we hope to see more of that.
Yeah, it's a sign of good things to come, and although we call it ping pong in America.
Table tennis.
And it's not that huge here, but it is big internationally.
It is huge, especially in Asia. Especially that's where all the tournaments are. So you think about a player who wants to travel all the way to China or to Japan to take part in a tournament, the flight alone is prohibitive. So government has to step in. On the other hand, if they do win, it brings national pride and it allows them to have sponsorships from private industry.
All right, well, good for them. Frankie Edozien, thank you as always.
Thank you, Debbie.
We'll
Great
see
to
you
be
again
here.
next week.
All righty, cheers.
This is The Rise America.